Back.
Here we are. Where did we leave off? We left off. Shifu and I were having a very long talk. Because from 2008 on, as most people know, we had a recession then, and people were sweating bullets at that time. The stock market dropped. People were losing tons of money. So did I. And I needed to make a decision around, by the time 2011, 2012 came, I was trying to kind of balance it out because I had a lot of people depending on me, you know. So anyway, I had a long talk with my Shifu, and he goes, you know, let's go up on the cliffs and let's meditate. And I met him up there early one morning, and we did some Qigong, and then we sat down and meditated. And he goes, I want you, because at that point I had looked in Oregon, I'd been to Washington State.
Oh, you were looking at several
places.
places.
I was already looking at a bunch of different places.
Interesting.
And I had been to Missouri earlier in 2000. I had never been to this one specific place where I live now. I'd never even heard of it, you know, Branson, Hollister, Missouri. I've heard of Springfield, I've heard of St. Louis, I've heard of Kansas City.
Now, were you thinking that it was just too much for you to stay within that area to make these decisions?
I think it was all of the whole, you know, and now at that point becoming a disciple, just like Shifu when he left the temple to come here on his own, the abbot and his teacher literally did not speak to him for a year, purposely, because they wanted him to ground himself and to be able to make something happen here. The same thing it did by me coming here. I'd had all of this, I don't want to use the word fame or acknowledgement of my things I did, you know, and being with the celebrities, or being a doctor in Beverly Hills, or having all the multiple schools we had that, you know, had, and the bodyguard agency, all of that. So to rid myself of all these things, could I have reinvented myself since when we closed Torrance? Yeah, probably. But there was just so much drama and negativity and things I had dealt with on other avenues, with clients,
clean slate,
other family things, that, you know, I've been teaching there, and, you know, for a long time, you know, and so I had to, it was time I got to think about me in a non-selfish way, but to make that change. So we meditated, and he goes, I want you to tell me what you see, what comes to your mind. So after we finished meditating for about a half hour or so, I said, I see these green hills, you know, and this stream and river and lake. And as you've been here a couple times now, you know exactly what this place looks like. It's beautiful, you know. And I said, that's that Branson, Hollister area where, you know, I've seen before. And he goes, well, then that's where you got to go. I didn't know anybody here, you know, I knew nothing, but it's just to uproot, which he helped me pack the moving van.
I remember packing the van.
And putting the Harley Davidson and everything else in that thing, draining the gas out of it. But anyway, it was tough for me to leave everything I knew, everything that I cared about, the ocean, the land, the people, the businesses, but I understood Shifu needed to change too. I needed to purge. I needed to remember who I was. If you look at how many changes from military to school to music to, and all of that happened in that, to back to school, to being in a hospital for a time. Then I'm working a private practice in Beverly Hills, to studying with another legend and opening schools and all, you know, just boom, 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 boom. Sometimes, even though with success, it's like, am I still in touch with me? You know? So it was time to do that. So we packed it up, and I ended up here. And I thought, being with that background here too, if I opened a school, things might really take up, like have somebody that's been in that venue for a long time. But then you find out in a very in-your-face way that nobody here knows who you are at all. You know, it had been a major bigger city, or Minnesota, or, you know, Pittsburgh or something, you know, they know, they see all that stuff. So, you know, so not many people. So getting students was very slow. I just had a few in the beginning to where I actually had to take a job. And bless you again. And I actually had to take a job, and I'd always enjoyed cooking. That was another hobby of mine. And everybody always told me, why don't you open a restaurant, man? You're a great chef, you know, great cook.
And before you came here, I had no idea.
I know,
that you
not
were
many
doing so
people
much
did, or I had
cooking.
friends over sometimes, you know, but we always used to go out and do stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But, so I just said, you know, I'm going to give this a shot. Why not? I need extra money right now anyway. So I actually was very lucky, and I ended up working for a very famous television singer, vocalist, Andy Williams, you know, and who was one of my moms. She, oh my God, she watched his show all the time, you know, and she had passed away, you know, and so they didn't get a chance to be around for that for me. My mom passed away in 2001. My dad, 8 weeks later, in 2002, passed away. So that was quite a rough thing for me to lose them both in a very short amount of time. But she loved Andy Williams, so I told him that too when I met him, you know. So he really enjoyed the things that I made. His wife always loved my taco salad that I make for her and stuff. So I had to do that while I was training. And that was actually when I first met my, later on, ended up being my wife, a man who was going to be a disciple and a monk for the rest of his life. I was not going to be with anybody anymore. I was choosing more of the spiritual life, which I still am. But she was a student back then, at that day. And then we also, I found a Buddhist monastery in Navasota, Augusta, Missouri, which is right before St. Louis. And Master Jiru was the abbot there. And we went there to do a whole teaching series and things like that. And Colin and Amy both went to that. And so our friendship kind of grew after that, but we'll get more into that later. Then I came back. Now, when I started teaching at this dance studio, I was trying to find a place to go. And there was a dance studio real close to me called Premier Dance Academy. And, you know, most of the people I think moving back here, I'm going to meet guys from the South or, you know, with the accents and everything, you know. So finally, the lady comes out to introduce herself to me, and her name is Elena Sarek. And on top of that, she and her husband were both Russians from Moscow. So out in the middle of Missouri, I'm thinking to meet all this, and I meet two people who came here from Moscow, Russia, you know, to open their school here, and they were a adagio dance couple. They were very amazing. He was amazing. He was also
professional dancers.
Yeah, and he was also on the before, when they were younger and still in Russia. He was on the Russian military tumbling gymnastic team. He'd won every freaking title imaginable, and then they did their dance back then too. The adagio is kind of like balletic dancing, but where the man holds them up on one foot, where they're like doing a complete split in there and throw them and catch them and, you know, lay on their back, and you've seen it where they do the flips and all that stuff. But dance, it's just incredible body control. So I remember going in there, and I'll make this story short, when Elena and Vadim were there, and I had my resume of what I'd done and all this stuff. They goes, "You say you train with monk? You train with monk?" I said, "Yes, I'm Shihamri." He goes, "Ah, da." He goes, "I seen monk. I seen them many times." He says, "You show me. You show me." And then so I, you know, did my main couple forms for him, you know, were truly the authentic Shaolin forms. And he goes, "Ah, da, you train with monk." Like that. He goes, "It's fine." So Elena goes, "You're welcome to be with us," you know. So that was just, and then later on ended up being extremely good friends. And actually they were the ones that kind of led my wife now and I later on, this was a while later, into the Orthodox belief church, and which I knew not much about, but when I got in it, it was so Zen to me, you know, Christian kind of, but Zen, that it was pretty impressive.
Nice.
But then we lost Vadim in 2016, and that was ironic that I was still teaching all through that time, and the Martial Art Hall of Fame had found where I was at. You know, because you remember the first time I was nominated was 2010. You went to that one. No, twice, 2010, 2011, and you were at the second one. I don't think you went to the first one, you went to the second one. And they didn't know where I'd moved to. You know, they were trying to find me. You know, so they contacted me and said they were going to be at the Radisson Hotel in Branson, and they want me to nominate me. You know, for
It just so happened that they were going to be in Branson and you had moved here.
yeah, crazy, huh?
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, they go to, and then later on you find there was one in Kansas City later on, which we'll discuss. But right before that, in 2016, in April 1st, April Fool's Day, right? And we had just been with Vadim and Elena. We had gone to St. Louis. That's where Amy and I go for our acupuncture. Dr. Lou is there. He works on us there. And of course, that's who I looked for the minute I got here. Where's the main Chinese doctor? You know, because I'm very much into holistic and herbs, and I had to drive 4 hours to go to St. Louis, but I don't care. That's who I want to work on me. And so anyway, Vadim was having trouble with his shoulder, and you got to remember this guy. I used to watch this guy do handstand push-ups and just the epitome of health and strength. And so anyway, Amy and I were home, kind of going a little ahead with this, and get a phone call, 10 o'clock at night. Jerry, yeah, hi. Another lady that worked at the studio was named Amy, spelled different than my wife, but she goes, I have to tell you some very terrible news. She goes, Mr. Vadim is gone. And I went, where'd he go? You know, she goes, Jerry, Vadim passed away. And it's like, I'm like, what? You know, then I've got, oh man, it's April Fool's. Real funny, Amy. That's not funny. Jerry, Vadim has gone to be with God. And my jaw was just hanging. I had just been with him.
Right.
He had a massive, what they call a widowmaker type of where your left artery area fills up and it can't clear out, and it just immediately shuts down. You've got maybe an hour left to pull him back out of that. You know, but he had been in the car. He had just dropped his daughter off, Maria, and he felt it coming on. And poor guy, he literally pulled the car over. And, you know, the car was still running and locked. Park, and he never got a chance to. So by the time they found him, the paramedics or the police, you know, it was too late. You know, they tried to revive him and took him to the hospital and tried to revive him. So anyway, you know, then we had the funeral for him at the church in Ash Grove, and that was the very first time, because Orthodox people do not cremate and they don't embalm the person. So you literally look like you're asleep. And that was just the most, you know, I've seen a lot of people in the war and everything, people, you know, die and things like that, or even in the past, but not quite like that. And I literally, with the ropes, lowered him down into the ground. So that was a pretty crazy,
quite an emotional
time. But we got more to come.
All right. Next sequence.
Next sequence.
Boom.
Yes, we do.